presentation on task analysis. What is task analysis, also known as TA? It is an intervention technique that teaches individuals new skills. It breaks down complex skills or behaviors that include multiple steps into individual steps. Written sets of directions are used in order for the individual to follow to help them break down the task when learning a new skill or behavior. Support via written directions, iPad directions, video directions, or support from a staff member are used to help the individual master the steps. Other interventions such as prompting, reinforcement, video modeling, visual supports, and social narratives and time delay are used when presenting task analysis. Why might we use task analysis? Task analysis helps individuals with autism break down complex behaviors that might seem overwhelming at times. By breaking these down, the tasks are then more manageable for these individuals. In addition, the practice is evidence-based, and I will talk more about that evidence later. It's also inexpensive and can be used to address a variety of different goals. So it's very versatile. All right, so let's look at an example here. This shows brushing teeth. It's a very basic example of task analysis that includes 5 steps. First, wetting the toothbrush. Second, putting the toothpaste on the brush. Third, brushing the teeth. Fourth, spitting in the sink. And 5, rinsing the toothbrush. In addition, you can see these little checks down here. These could be used maybe for the individual to check them off as they finish them, or it could be used as a reinforcement strategy where they maybe get stickers or some sort of token reward upon completing each steps. There are 3 types of ways that task analysis is taught, and it is forward chaining, backward chaining, as well as total task presentation. Forward chaining is where the steps are taught from the first step to the last step. Very similar to how it sounds. So once the first step in the chain is mastered, the next step is taught, etc., etc. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for the rest of the steps, the individual is provided assistance. So for example, when teaching brushing teeth, the learner will be taught how to wet the toothbrush before teaching how to put the toothpaste on the brush. And then, so for this one, they'll kind of be prompted to do that on their own, and then help will be provided for the next number of them. Here's a visual provided by the Affirm modules. Very easy. Prompt the learner to perform the first step, give them a reinforcer after they complete that step, and then you will guide the learner through the rest of the steps. And then once a step is mastered, the learner is then prompted and reinforced for the next task, the next step in the task. Backwards chaining is exactly like it sounds, basically the reverse of what we just talked about. So the final step in the chain is taught to mastery first, then each previous step is taught to mastery, until the individual has worked all the way back to the first step of the task. So for example, with the toothbrushing, the student will be taught to rinse the toothbrush independently until mastery, and then will be taught to spit in the sink, so on and so forth. Another great visual that I liked from the Affirm module is basically assistance will be provided for completing the first few steps, and then the learner will be prompted for the final step, and then finally the learner will be reinforced upon completing that step, and then more and more previous prompts will be added as they continue to get mastered. All right, and then total task presentation is where the entire task is completed with reinforcement after each step. And after the final step, the most significant reinforcer is administered. So reinforcement is provided upon each step, and then after the last one, it's the biggest reinforcer. So for example, the student goes through the entire teeth brushing routine, gets verbal praise after 1, 2, 3, and 4 steps are completed, and then after task 5 is completed, they might get a star to put on their star chart, or some sort of more significant reinforcer. And here's another kind of chain of events provided by the people at a firm. Prompt the learner to complete each step, reinforce the learner upon completion, and then again you want to fade the reinforcers as quickly as possible so that the individual does not become reliant on needing those reinforcers in order to complete the task. All right, so what does the research say? The research shows that there have been 8 single case design studies, some in preschool, so 3 to 5-year-old individuals, and then some done in middle school, which is 12 to 14-year-old individuals. These case studies have shown that task analysis can be effective to address social, communication, joint attention, motor, adaptive, and academic tasks or needs, which this proves that task analysis is very variable and can be used to teach individuals a wide range of tasks. Okay, so before starting task analysis, first and foremost, a target skill must be identified. So what is the skill that we want the individual to learn through task analysis? This can often be found through looking at the individual's IEP, as well as doing an FBA. Then data will be collected, observing the individual. Can they perform the task? How do they perform the task? What is their current level of functioning? Upon collecting the data, you will be able to determine what prerequisite skills are needed. So, for example, if the task is that you want them to be able to read a short story and they can't read full sentences, that would be a prerequisite skill, was that they need to be able to read full sentences before being able to complete this task. So those skills must be taught prior. Other than that, if it's hand washing and the individual does have the motor skills to turn on the faucet, well then shoot, they do have the prerequisite skills needed in order to complete the task analysis. Fourth, you determine the detail of the task analysis. So through your knowledge of the child, would their toothbrushing task look something like the 5-step one above, or would they need one? Are they a little bit more advanced where they could have one with maybe 15 steps identifying, all right, now brush the lower left part of the teeth, now brush the lower middle part of the teeth, now brush the lower right part of the teeth, detailing a little bit more how you want them to brush their teeth. Fifth, you determine what materials are needed. If it's an academic task, what academic materials? If it's a social task, do we need individuals for the student to interact with? If it's a life skills task, if they want to learn how to make their bed, okay, we need sheets, we need somewhere where the individual can practice on a bed. And then sixth, you'll break down the skill into individual parts, and I will go more in depth on this part later. Because it does require a lot of detail. And then seventh is just confirming the steps, where you will either read through the steps or you'll have someone else read through the steps to make sure that nothing is missing and they are all complete and the individual can complete the task upon using the task analysis. And eighth, we individualize the plan, which is basically how are we going to teach it? Forward chaining, backward chaining, total task presentation, what kind of reinforcers, are we going to use video modeling, how much prompting will they need, how can you teach it in order for this individual to be most successful is a very important part when trying to decide how you want to present the task analysis to your student. All right, so tips on breaking the skills apart. First and foremost, do it yourself. Do it yourself, go through it. You can videotape yourself. You can do it and then stop and write down everything you did just to make sure you detail all the steps. You also need to make sure that these steps are explicit and they're observable. For example, you can't say, make sure it looks nice if you're talking about making the bed. Maybe smooth out the sheets, no wrinkles. we can see that there aren't any wrinkles. We can't really see that it just looks nice. So be very explicit when you're writing out your directions, and observable. In addition, watch someone else do it. You can video them or write down what they're doing. You can also go on YouTube and just type in that task and watch how someone does it. Finally, just confirm that each part that you have written down only consists of one skill. So don't intermix two skills together. For example, turn on water and put toothpaste on. Brush. Well, that's two tasks. Let's split that into two separate tasks so the individual isn't getting overwhelmed, which is the whole reason why we're doing the task analysis in the first place. All right, so implementation and progress monitoring is the final step. Implement the intervention. Have your kid use it. Teach your staff how to use it with the kid, and monitor progress. Is it working? Is the student learning the task? Are they becoming more independent with the task? How is it looking? Okay, so now let's look at a few examples here. So this one is a grilled cheese sandwich. So they provided some real-life pictures in this example, what they will need, the ingredients, and then they have the instructions, which are very explicit. Lay them down on a flat surface, spread half the butter on this one, half the butter on this one. Also, if you notice, this one does have a lot of writing on it, so you would imagine that this would be for a good reader or maybe a middle school student that would be using this task analysis. Here's another one that I kind of liked because it shows maybe this is the student doing it, and these are pictures of the actual student doing it. Again, knowing kind of where the student's level is at. Obviously, there are some steps missing from this, but you would assume that whoever wrote it for the student knew that maybe they knew, okay, grate cheese, well, they know where to find the cheese grater. And here's one maybe for a younger student on, whoops, how to put on a shirt. Pull the shirt over the head. Push right arm up, push left arm up, pull it down. There is text on this, but you can still get a lot from the picture, and it's kind of a good way to look at some of the more basic things that we might use for task analysis. And then I also have a little video here, and we can watch this person do it.
Wash hands. Okay, we're going to turn water on, get soap, rub hands, scrub, 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 rub, rub, rub. Excellent, water off. Great job, your hands are all clean now. Here's your fruit treat.
All right, so as you might have noticed, and that was an example of backwards chaining. So the individual was not prompted to get the paper towels and dry her hands, and then she was given the reward. All right, so finally, what if the task analysis isn't working? There are some basic questions that you should ask yourself that you could change about the intervention. Is it well defined? Does the student know the task that they're doing? Is it observable and measurable? Can you see what's happening? Is it explicitly explained to the student what they need to be doing? In addition, do they have the prerequisite skills? You do that previous data collection and observation prior to writing the task analysis, but there could have been some skills that you have missed, so that's okay, but it requires you to go back and look at, do they really have the prerequisite skills needed in order to complete this? And if not, then those just need to be taught. Fourth, is it complete? Are all the steps in there? Is it a start to finish task analysis? Is there something that you've missed? Fifth, is the teaching method appropriate? Is backward chaining, forward chaining, full task analysis, the reinforcers you're using, the representation? Do they need a video model? Is it too much text? Do they need pictures? What sort of method are you using that could maybe be changed to be more appropriate for the student? Is it being taught with fidelity is number 6. Is it being taught the way that it should be taught? And then finally, 7 and 8 are prompting and reinforcement being used in order for the student to really learn how to complete this task analysis. So yeah, those are kind of what to do if it isn't working. Thanks for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to